My bullshit this morning. It's a Friday. Um, the forces of evil are they got us on the ropes, y'all. They got us on the ropes, but we shall not be moved because we know rope a dope style, right? That's what Muhammad Ali taught us, rope a dope style. Mimi, how you doing? Are you up doing art this morning? I hope you're doing art this morning, Mama. We need more art in the world because, woo, the artless are artful at their evil doings. So we need some more artists in the world. Look, I should have made a title. I think you can I didn't do a title. So okay, so the title is Culture Keeper Breakfast. So I've made a commitment to try to go live in the mornings. And then it has a dash, and then it says, "We are the ones we have been waiting for." Come on, June Jordan. We are the ones we have been waiting for. So back when former President Obama said that, he did not credit it, and he really should have. Right there in the moment, right there in the moment, right before he said it, he should have said, in the words of feminist, lesbian, ancestor poet June Jordan, "We are the ones we have been waiting for," but he didn't. So I'm gonna shout her out now. Ashe. Woo! Mama June Jordan took the outrageous slings and arrows of the academy, so we don't have to. Mm. Ashe, Ashe, oh, Mama June Jordan. So, up this morning talking about culture keeping, and I really just wanted to share a story with you. If you want to comment, you can. I have comments enabled, chat enabled. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Treasure Shields Redmond, and I am a poet, performer, educator, oral historian, nonprofit founder, and culture keeper who is a dual citizen of Meridian, Mississippi, and East St. Louis, Illinois. That's a lot right there. And you know what? I'm up this morning to share a story with you. I've shared it personally with a couple of friends. Um, but I wanted to share it publicly because it was just so much confirmation on so many levels for me. I'm feeling kind of full. I'm feeling kind of emotional just thinking about the details of the story. I am executive director of the Community Archive, which is at thecommunityarchive.org. It is a nonprofit, and it is a oral history archiving nonprofit. So far we have the stories of activists, artists, and educators who all took part in the Ferguson uprising in 2014. If you recall, 10 years ago when Michael Brown was murdered in Ferguson, Missouri, an incredible uprising rose up in response. And so we have an archive of artists, activists, and educators who participated in direct action, organizing, protests having to do with the Ferguson uprising. I also have an archive of oral histories of my 85-year-old father, who is the poet laureate of East St. Louis, Illinois, and a Black Arts Movement poet, one of the architects of the Black Studies movement. And I am compiling an archive of stories of um, descendants of survivors of the 1917 East St. Louis Race Massacre, popularly known as the Race Riot. But as the culture learns. I know that we have some political and elected officials who seem to not learn, who seem to be in a cycle of insanity, but culture does learn. They're just pretending. Um, Now that we've learned more, we know that these uh, incredible outbursts of violence, wanton killing of Black people, attempted ethnic cleansings in places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, Springfield, Chicago, Wilmington, Rosewood, and so forth, they were not riots. they that was not a riot. That was a massacre. But the story I want to tell you is, and the reason why I call this "We Are the Ones We Have Been Waiting For" is I just understand so deeply that we have to go out and collect our own stories. You know, you can go to the Library of Congress, and you can go and listen to and read the narratives of formerly enslaved folks here in the U.S. And I guarantee you that there is so much that was still left unsaid because the interviewers were white. The interviewers were not also formerly enslaved people. The interviewers were not also Black people. And here's my story that proves that. So, I have been performing with an incredible jazz band. This is a collaboration between two entities that were commissioned to do work for a magazine called Oxford American. I was commissioned to write a poem in honor of the revolutionary ancestor Dred Scott and his wife Harriet Scott. They were St. Louis residents who were enslaved in the 1860s and they 1850s as well, and they went to sue for their freedom, and their case kind of set the precedent and moved us even closer to the Civil War, which set the stage for enslavement to be abolished and for the formerly enslaved and the enslaved to violently take their freedom through the Civil War. The band, they were commissioned to write music that had to do with the Little Rock Nine. So the Little Rock Nine were 9 teenagers in 1957 who integrated Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. Hi, Ransburg Arts. So this band created music and used a notable jazz musician's compositions. And then here I am creating poetry, and we're both creating them about, good morning, we're both creating them about ancestral revolution, descent, the story of Black people in the US revolutionary history. So when they come to St. Louis, um, somebody gets the idea that, oh, Treasure should get up and perform with them. We're going to be in the same city. We had never performed together. And when we performed together, it was such a synergy that we've gone on to do other gigs. We've been invited other places. Hey, Carol, I loved meeting your niece. You all have a gorgeous, you guys share a gorgeous face. So, me and this jazz band have started performing together. So earlier this year was the 66th anniversary of the Little Rock Nine, those 9 Black teenagers integrating Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. So we got invited to perform at the big celebration in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I had a month or so in order to do a deep dive on that history, right? Because I wanted to write something specific to the occasion. So I read Elizabeth Eckford's book. Elizabeth Eckford is the one of the teens who's in a very iconic picture. If you think you've seen it, it is a picture of a tiny black girl, 1950s hairstyle, glasses, dress, holding her books, walking, while a crowd of, I can only describe them as rabid racists, scream behind her. There's this one woman in particular who looks as if she is saying, I want to eat her. Like, it's just a dangerous situation. So I read Elizabeth Eckford's book, and then I became enamored with her, and I started to watch her tell the story over and over again, because she gets invited to universities, and she gets invited to cultural centers, and she gets invited to Juneteenths, and she gets invited to all these sorts of gatherings, to tell her story of being one of the Little Rock Nine, and particularly of the day that picture was taken, because that picture stands out in the mind of many of us when we think of um, the civil rights movement. That picture is actually the picture that James Baldwin references when he says, and when I saw that picture, I knew I had to come back from Europe to the US. It's that picture. So a couple of things came forward, right? One thing that came forward was she kept saying, my mother prayed the Psalms of protection before I went to the school. She mentioned that in almost every recounting of that day's events, that her mother had prayed the Psalm of protection before she went to Central High. She also mentioned that after she really escaped with her life from her first attempt to go to school at Central High, and I mean literally, this was a crowd of hundreds of white folks. They had lynch ropes under their arms. She looked at an older lady thinking that she might find some empathy, and that old white woman spit on this baby. They were saying, let's get her over there to that tree so they could lynch her. They were screaming 2, 4, 6, 8. We don't want to integrate. And it was like, if you've ever had the experience or watched a growling pack of wolves on the edge of attack, that's what they were giving. Yes, yes, it's the image that made James Baldwin come back, definitely. So, one of the things that she says is, the reason why she was alone and not with the other 18s is because people didn't have telephones back then. Her family didn't have a telephone. Everybody didn't have a phone. And she hopped on a city bus with the help of a kind white woman who happened to be there that day. So it took her a couple of hours to get to her mother's place of work. And in that time, her dad is driving around. There are lots of rumors swirling. He's, almost insane with worry. Her mother is also at work. People have brought word to her that it's not going, it's not proceeding smoothly. And so one of the things that Miss Eckford says is that when she got to her mother's job, she could tell from her mother's back. She could tell by the way she rose up and turned around that she had been praying. Now, let me tell y'all something. At the beginning of this, I told you I'm a dual citizen of Meridian, Mississippi, and East St. Louis, Illinois. I'm a child of the Black migration. All through, my dad's family is from Arkansas. My mother's family, of course, is from Mississippi. I have South Georgia relatives I would visit. I have relatives in New Orleans. I'm a child of the South and the migration. And East St. Louis has often been called the northernmost southern place. So it's like coming from one Mississippi to another Mississippi. Saying all that to say, I was raised with hoodoo. I was raised with hoodoo, and I know hoodoo when I hear it and when I see it. And when Mama Eckford said that Mother Bertie Eckford prayed that psalm, I knew she was working a root on them folk. Because y'all, that still photo, you can also watch video from that day. And there is no reason that girl wasn't torn limb from limb. I think it was on the exact same day that a black journalist from Memphis, they beat his ass down the block, y'all. I mean, literally beat him down the block. You may recall the video of a black man, very in his 1960 swimsuit, and his fedora, and he's being beaten and knocked down. And every time he gets up, he tries to keep his dignity. But they really just beat him and knock him down, beat him, kick him, knock him, drag him, just all the way down. They beat his ass down the block. I think that was on that same day. So the cameras caught that. So I don't know why the cameras would have stopped them from pulling our now Mother Eckford to pieces. So cut to me going to Little Rock to perform. The Little Rock Nine, I think 5 of the surviving members were there. They were incredibly complimentary, saying things like, "This is the best one we've had," which blew my mind and made me feel just so good. And the next day, we went to the studio to record our work. And Miss Eckford came to the studio. Miss Eckford came to the studio to provide a bit of audio for that project, and maybe some others. So Miss Eckford walks in, and she sits down, and I go and sit down next to her. And we introduce ourselves, and then I say, "Miss Eckford, did your mother ever sew the psalms into your clothing?" Because she always talked about how her mother was a great seamstress, and she taught all the girls to sew, and that the dress she has on in that iconic picture is one that they had sewn so that she would be real cute for this new school. So she said, "No, she never did that." And I said, "Oh, okay." And then she said, "But her thing with Christianity, it was something else." So when Miss Eckford said this about her mother's thing with Christianity, I thought she meant, black folks' regular thing with Christianity. We're very talismanic with the Christianity. We be like, this Bible gonna get you. You know what I'm saying? Like we're like the cross with vampires as far as the Christianity. We're like, and let me tell you this, So I'm thinking that's what she means about her thing with Christianity. Black folks thing. It's very totemic to us. We have transferred Africanisms overlaid them over Christianity. So our versions of Christianity are fascinating. So I thought that's what she meant. So I'm just smiling and like, yeah, I hear you. And then she says, because her practice of hoodoo, that was something that she just stood by. I looked at Miss Eckford, because y'all, I'm very animated and real cray. So I said, "Miss Eckford," I said, "don't play no games with me right now. Don't play with me right now." And she looked at me. She said, "Oh, have you heard of hoodoo? Have you?" I said, "Miss Eckford, I literally wrote a poem because I did this deep dive on her because I wanted to write something specific to the occasion. I didn't get to perform it there. But I wrote a poem in the voice of her mother, which is a hoodoo spell. It's a casting." That's what I wrote. It's called Hoodoo for 9 Offenses. I said, Miss Eckford, I pulled the poem out of my purse, signed it, and gave it to her. I said, Miss Eckford, I literally wrote a poem in your mother's voice with her using hoodoo. Her using hoodoo. And she said, really? I said, your mother practiced hoodoo? She said, yes, it was all throughout the community. And then when you would talk to the older people and ask them about it, they would get real cagey. They would get real and I was just, it blew my mind. And most of the musicians who were present and the kind of producer manager of our collaboration, they were white. And they said nobody has ever mentioned hoodoo. Nobody's ever questioned the Little Rock Nine about that. Nobody's ever brought that up. They've never brought it up. And the reason why, so Ransberger says it was meant only for her. Let me tell you, that was a powerful thing. But the reason why it had never come up is because most of the people who produced the media that we now see about them were not Black folks, Southerners, other people from Little Rock, age mates, gender mates, didn't have that cultural connection. Which brings me back to why I told the story. I told the story because when we are collecting the histories of the elders, particularly, even if we are a part of a funding organization that doesn't look like the histories we're going to collect, we need to go out and empower collectors, oral historians, community archivists who look like and have similar experiences to the people whose story we're collecting, who have an affinity, who are going to ask about things that somebody outside of their culture wouldn't have thought to ask about. And so I think about it so often. I think about now it's almost like it pulled a veil back regarding our elders who were activists and revolutionaries and who was using a root, who was carrying a mojo hang, who was carrying a gree, who, you know what I'm saying, who was doing some stuff to reduce harm during some of our most dangerous times, right? Or to exact revenge during some of our most dangerous times. So we are the ones we have been waiting for. We no longer need to wait for any dominant culture, organization, or system to preserve our histories. We can preserve our own histories. We can curate them. We can display them. We can host listening parties. We can host viewings. We can curate showings. We can collaborate with the Negro women's clubs. We can collaborate with the Historical Society. We can collaborate with the Eastern Stars and the Masons and the sorority folk and the fraternity folk. We can collaborate with the Deacon Board. We can collaborate with all these institutions. Hey, we can collaborate with all these institutions in our community. That's right. That's right. We can preserve our own history because no one had ever asked one of the Little Rock Nine about hoodoo. No one had ever asked them about that. And it's not just a cultural thing. It's about a certain cultural um it's also about love. It's also about love. It's about respect and love. See, I don't see hoodoo as scary or demonic. I am no longer in an Abrahamic space that teaches us that everything African is evil or that ascribes a negative emotion to the words witch or witchcraft. I don't feel that. I don't feel that at all. What I feel is fascination, interest, charmed by those stories, those instances, and I find them valuable. So that's why that question about hoodoo, which I was about to bring up to one of the Little Rock Nine, Miss Eckford, but she brought it up first. She brought it up first because another Black woman was talking to her about her experiences. She'd never said anything else, and probably, you know, her dear departed. And one of the things I said to Mrs. Eckford was, well, we praise you, Mother Bertie Eckford, mother, expert seamstress, and hoodoo woman. And I raised my hands like that, and she laughed and raised her hands too. I just don't know of many white interviewers who would do that. I don't know many. I can't think of anybody. I'm sure they exist. Probably one of those interesting white people who've been initiated by some swindlers somewhere. One of them might. But I just believe that we are the ones we have been waiting for. So I'm not gonna hold y'all this morning. What time is it? I'm in the central time zone. It's 8:58. I'm finna go to this little they can't ask the either question or bring out the full story. And if they did, would they be respectful in the process? Yes. The right questions. Yes, 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 yes. Ah, Lee Krasner join. Hey, mama. Hey, mama. Hey, D'Amica. I hate to get off now that all of y'all are joining. I told my story. So maybe I should go on a little later. Maybe I should go on a little later tomorrow. Then I'll retell the story and add something else I wanted to share with y'all. But this has been fantastic. I want you to go to thecommunityarchive.org for two reasons. Number one, I want you to check out the first of the, I want you to check out the first of the oral histories from one of the descendants of survivors of the 1917 East St. Louis race massacre. And I want you to check out the Womanist Feminist Archiving class that will be taking place again in December. It's going to be taking place again in December. I want you to go ahead and join, and then I can send you the private Zoom link, and then we can gather and I can talk to you about how to preserve community stories. Love y'all. Happy Friday. Bye.